Welcome to Envision Broadcasting, the station designed to encourage, equip, and empower you for growth and success presents The Momentum Shift. A show where we get inspired, we get moving, and we get results. Every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern with your host, Eric Collier. He's the mayor of motivation and mental quicksand expert, bringing you inspiring interviews and empowering stories that will help to improve lives. If you're ready to start making the impossible possible, then you've joined the right show, because the momentum shift is what you've been looking for.
How well they're doing, they're still convinced that it's not good enough. They're still convinced that like total fraud, like everyone's going to find me out, like I'm never good. And so it's like, we're really, and it makes sense. Our brains are wired that way. Society's telling us all the time that we're going to buy this product, do this thing, And so we are so good at making ourselves bad and wrong. So I think it's really important that we practice in whatever shape or form, makes sense for each of us and resonates, to decide and remind ourselves that we are good enough.
Are you ready to experience unparalleled comfort and warmth like never before? Introducing Sensory Product Design's flagship line of cozy blankets, the ultimate solution for warming your extremities and wrapping yourself in a whole body hug of coziness. Sensory Product Design's adult-sized cozy throzies and child-sized cozy cozies blankets are crafted from the highest quality microfiber fleece, ensuring unmatched warmth and comfort. But what sets Cozy Z's apart is its unique ability to settle your nervous system, providing a soothing sensation similar to an adult swaddle. Whether you're unwinding after a long day at work or trying to calm down your hyperactive child, Cozy Z's blankets work wonders in helping you find peace and tranquility. As proud sponsors of the Momentum Shift podcast and radio show, we invite you to visit cozyz.com. That's COZYZZZ.com now, and use the discount code Momentum25 to enjoy a fantastic 25% off your purchase today. Experience the magic of Cozy Z's blankets from Sensory Product Design and transform your moments of stress into moments of bliss. Don't wait. Embrace the warmth and comfort of Cozy Z's today. Hello and welcome to the Momentum Shift, a show designed to get you inspired, get you moving so you can get results. Why? Because we want you to live in what you believe to be impossible. I know that you have this belief that you can only go so high in life, but I'm telling you, you can go higher. Trust me, you where you are now is not where you should end up. With me today is a guest who can basically confirm what I'm talking about, because she's elevating her life. Not only is she elevating her life, she's helping others do the same, and she's doing it by helping them unleash their inner badass. I love that. I love that tagline. So who is my guest? It's Sandra Possing, and she's a life coach, speaker, and entrepreneur. And she has the coaching programs, using social media coaching programs, her writing, live streaming, and speaking engagements. She inspires and empowers and challenges people to seriously step up their game. She tells you right off the bat, I'm going to challenge you to step up. I love what you come with, but I'm going to challenge you to step up. And so I like that in you. I love the energy you bring. And so, Sandra, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me with that energy too. Hard not to jump right up to your level and want to match that too. I'm such an energetic being, and I'm always kind of feeding off of people's vibe and their frequency. And yeah, you make me want to jump right up and meet you where you are. So thanks for having me.
Let's roll with it, man. I'm loving it. So I was sitting there listening to your story, and you said that you were always messed as a CrossFitter. You compete. I mean, that stepping your game up, huge. So we'll talk about it a little bit more, but that was really excited about that, because there are many occasions I've watched the CrossFit Games and I'm like, wow, that's great. Yeah, they're beasts.
Well, those guys are actual beasts. I've never competed in any sort of like professional level. The CrossFitting that I do is very much like what's it called? Mere mortal human level of just going to classes. And yeah, I haven't actually competed in anything very official. It's mostly just, it's a way of life. It's an identity thing. It's
Yeah.
just, I identify as an athlete. I always have. I
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
runner back in high school. And it just, it's one of those things like kind of like with everything I teach, the core of all of it is identity. And it's
Yeah.
who we believe ourselves to be and who we choose to decide over
Right.
and over that we are. And fitness for me, and like with my husband too, he's even more of a fitness
Yeah.
freak than I am. And it's so baked into our day-to-day lifestyle, and it's just
Yeah.
who we are, and it's non-negotiable,
Yeah.
non-negotiable.
Yeah. And what's cool about it is that's your moment to get away from the hustle and bustle and to really kind of tune into you, right? And it's
100%.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get to that point where you're feeling like I'm getting ready to just give up. No, 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 I can't give up. I got more in me. I can do more. So that's that moment. So talk to me about that moment when you got to the point where I'm stuck and but I can do more. I got more in me. So what is momentum shifting and how has it shifted your life?
If I don't even know that I could identify one main moment, because there have been so many of them over the
Right.
years, and
Right.
looking back
Who
at it,
has just one?
yeah, there's so many, and they tend to fall into, I could put them in categories of sort of the main areas where I struggled. Like part of the whole reason I even launched this business 12 years ago was that my main struggle in my younger years was self-worth. It was confidence. It was believing in myself. And so starting a business where I get to coach people around
Right.
their own worthiness and
Right.
empowerment, that was a huge part of that. And there were so many breakdowns that led to my own breakthroughs, which then allowed me to facilitate that transformation for other people. And then the same thing with career was a
Yeah.
huge mess for me. I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I went through all sorts of twists and turns, and there were so many meltdowns
All
in
right.
that journey. And then of course in my business, I end up helping a lot of people find their career, their purpose, start their business. So I end up
Yeah.
sort of doing a lot of career coaching unintentionally because it was such a big part of my journey.
You're
And
the
then
go-to person, right?
it was like the next set of challenges were all under the financial umbrella for me. So it was like once I kind of squared away my own empowerment and self-worth, and then I squared away my own career, all my next, well, as anyone who's an entrepreneur can relate to, it's a roller coaster. And the finances and the
Yeah.
money mindset, and really believing in your own ability to create that stability and the wealth for yourself is a huge journey,
Yeah.
I think, for most of us. And so that was like my next series of meltdowns and breakdowns and breakthroughs, which now of course has led to me being so passionate about helping other entrepreneurs with their money mindset, and that's a big part of what
Right.
I do now.
Because that's what they're going through, right? Yeah. I think I like what you talked about. So I call it being stuck in my own mental quicksand. And like I
Yeah.
said, that lack, that self-worth, the fight battle that we have. So not even thinking I had what it took to write in a book, to be able to stand in front of an audience, to be able
Mm.
to change my life, to be able to go out and do those things. I don't know how many times somebody would bring me an opportunity and I would go, "Nah, it's not me, man."
I mean, it's wild what actually can happen when you just decide to believe that it's possible for you. Some
Right.
of my biggest, revenue jumps or just big leaps in terms of something I did that was terrifying, or I just went for it. It was oftentimes it just came down to a decision where I went, you know what, like, why not me? And why not? And why not? Like, let me just try it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And having the courage to just take that bold leap, even though you have no idea what's going to happen, and you might completely faceplant, and you're terrified of looking like an idiot, but you
Yeah.
decide to do it anyway. And
Yeah.
then it's amazing the magic that can happen when it's like you jump and you take this courage, and then the universe kind of meets you where you are in your
Right.
boldness sometimes, and it's like, all right, let's fly.
Yeah, but they're getting that reward for jumping out there, right? And if you look at, we battle self-worth, but as athletes, it was nothing to get out there and compete because look, I'm gonna be the starter today. I'm gonna be the starter all year. I'm gonna be the all-star. I'm gonna be out there, be the one, right? That mindset is easy to have, but when you step out there and you're doing things like you said, the financial stuff. Oh my gosh, the mind. So talk to me about the financial stuff. You think it was a lot of the mindset or the paradigm you lived in when it comes to handling money?
I mean, fitness is the perfect metaphor. Fitness is the perfect metaphor for life in general, but
Okay.
also it's a great metaphor for our relationship with money. I think of my relationship with fitness, my relationship with health, my relationship with moving my body has
Yeah.
kind of always been easy. Because
Yeah.
not because I'm like some genetically gifted freak or something, it's because I just have always identified as an athlete. Like it would never occur to me to worry that I'm going to get out of shape. It would never occur to me to be super stressed about how am I going to be consistent with working out, or am I going to be able to hit my fitness goals, or will I ever, have the body that I want? Like none of that worries me because I'm so solidified in my self-worth and my identity
Yeah.
as an athlete. And because I identify so strongly as an athlete, the habits, the behaviors, the daily commitments, all those little things are just like, of course I would do those. Why would I not do those?
Right.
With the money journey, on the other hand, I had a very different relationship with that because I'd never had the solidity in myself as the identity of a wealthy person, or a person with consistent income, or a person who could handle all of that, and of course we can go back to our childhood and all our many
Oh yeah.
influences, and coming from a complicated family in multiple different places, I had a lot of different influences that were very like different ends of the spectrum. And combine that with, um, societal conditioning and expectations
Oh
and
yeah. Yeah.
all the things around money in our culture. And it's like, when I started really looking at my own money mindset, I was like, it was like I opened this bag and just went, wow, okay, there it is, like a big, huge mess in there. And no wonder I'm having this tumultuous relationship. I like to think of, money as if it were a person.
Yeah.
And if I were money back then, I'm like, I wouldn't want to stick around either. Like I was a hot mess, I'm like, I want you. I don't want you. Wait, I'm
Right.
scared. No, wait, go away. No, wait, come back. No, never leave me. But
Right.
you're not enough. No, I'm not enough. It was like, oh my gosh, if this was a relationship, it would be an absolute train
I
wreck.
can't love you because it's a sin. I can't love you. To
Do
go.
so many things, right? Whereas like fitness, I'm like, oh yeah, just, I take
Yeah.
walks every day. I go to the
Yeah.
gym. No big deal. There was like zero resistance. And so in order to hit my fitness and health goals, like it's just easy because there's no resistance because the identity is there. So
Yeah.
with money, I've had to completely like strip down the relationship that was there. That was just this convoluted mixed bag of all sorts of things. And then I've
Yeah.
had to kind of decide, what do I want my relationship with money to be, and who do I want to be, as like, what is the identity I'm choosing
Yeah.
when it comes to money, abundance, wealth, even just business, entrepreneurship? And how do I step into that version of myself? And how do I not just like, decide who that person is, but how do I show up as that person energetically, physically, emotionally? How do I speak like that person? How do
Right.
I have the kinds of daily habits and behaviors the same way an athlete would with their fitness? How do
Yeah.
I do that as an entrepreneur, as a manager of my own wealth and abundance,
Yeah. You're
which has been
creating you're
a
creating what you
quite
want.
a ride.
I like what you say. I like what you say with choosing. It's a choice, and most people don't realize it's a choice. And I like what you talk about with creating that person, because we go back to fitness and being an athlete, you create the person that you want to be, right? The athlete that you want to be. If you're in the gym and you're working out, what are you doing? You're picturing the person that you want to look like with every rep that you're taking, right? With every exercise you're doing. So you're creating that. Why can't you pull that over to your lifestyle, right? I like it.
100%. I'm such a believer that we are creating our reality in every moment,
Yeah.
every day of our lives, but most of us are doing it completely unconsciously.
Yeah.
And the way we're doing it unconsciously is all based on our past. So it's based on our conditioning, our fears, our traumas, our childhood programming. And it's like, if 95% of who we are in our minds is all in our subconscious, we're just repeating a bunch of old, outdated, kind of like
Yeah.
crusty, dusty programs.
Right.
And so if we want to shift that, and if we want to create different results in our life, if we want to create a different reality, which could be down to just the simple perspective shifts we have as we respond to life around us in every day, but also creating the results we want in our fitness, in our finances,
Yeah.
in our relationships, in our businesses, whatever it is. It's like we have to be at choice as much of the time as possible, knowing that,
Right.
we can't control every single thought, we can't
No.
control every emotion, but we can start to get more clear on like this. And that's why I keep coming back to identity, because it's like, to me, it's like there's a million tools and modalities and strategies we can use to get where we want to go.
Right.
But identity to me is like the best shortcut. It's like the fastest hack because it kind of encompasses everything else. So
Yeah.
again, with the gym analogy, I'm like, if I identify as an athlete, just show up as her. If I
Yeah.
want to identify as a, you know, 7-figure entrepreneur or a wealthy woman or a really committed friend in my friendships, whatever the goal is, it's like embody that, the identity of that person. And then you have this kind of like, oh, well then, okay, so that person would talk this way, think this way, you know, so it's like, how do I align my beliefs, my thoughts, my emotions, my behaviors, my habits, my, all of that with that kind of soul-led desire or goal.
That high performance right there, right? I love it.
Yeah.
So now this is where you are right now. You're speaking, you're coaching, you're high performance, you're helping people live and I would say unleash their inner badass. I love it. I just love saying that. So how did you get here? I mean, let's talk about it. I know you talked about your journey. You went on a journey of self-help. So talk to me about what inspired you to even take that leap. Where were you?
You know, so a lot of it was a product of kind of what I was struggling with at the time. And I was born in Sweden and I moved to California when I was 5. So right off the bat, I was an immigrant, right? So I was other, I was different. And growing up, you know, I came to my like straight into kindergarten, didn't speak a word of English, and, you know, went into ESL and stuff. So I've always felt very European or very Scandinavian when I'm here, but I also go back and see my family a lot. So whenever I'm there, I feel very American. So again, with the identity thing, you know, it's like for anybody who's grown up with 2 cultures parallel, you know, you're thinking in 2 different languages, you're thinking in 2 different cultures, and a lot of who you are and how you show up in your behavior is context dependent. It's very environmental. You know, it was like I would morph into a different version of myself when I would go see my family in Sweden. I'll be like, this is interesting. And I remember I studied abroad in Italy for a year, and I morphed into this other version of myself where I was like, I like her better than the other 2 versions. Like, who is this spicy mama? You know, and she was, because if anyone who's been to Italy knows, you know, it's like they speak with their hands. You get your personal space is much smaller. Like in Sweden, you leave like 6 feet of space between your faces. In Italy, you leave like 6 millimeters of space between your faces. Like
a lot of
you're
close
just
talkers.
Yeah, like it took me, you know, 8 months to realize that my roommates, my 2 guy roommates I was living with weren't fighting all the time. I was like, oh, they're just talking, you know, but being there, it was like, it helped me find this whole other identity within myself where I was like, I like her. She's sassy. She's opinionated. And so I decided to bring her back with me to California when I came back. And so post college, I was kind of like, okay, I already have these 3 identities. Like who else do I want to be? And that was, so I think just growing up and traveling and being around different cultures helped me recognize that we are malleable and we don't just, it's like your past doesn't determine who you are. You know, it's part of your history. I'm all about us like, you know, healing from trauma and honoring our past and acknowledging that our parents and caretakers were doing the best they could with what they have. And like, you know, the more we can like forgive and move on and stuff is great. But it's like honoring that, but then also deciding, like you were saying, like, I have a choice. I really believe we always have a choice. Even in the worst possible circumstances, we can do the best we can with what we have to try to decide, how do I want to respond to this? You know, and like, so as I encountered my own challenges, like I was saying, just with self-worth and being confident, I'm an introvert, I'm shy, I'm, you know, I was all the things that like in a very loud extroverted world built for extroverts by extroverts, it's hard when you're a sensitive little flower like it can be sometimes, hence all the stuff around unleashing your inner badass, because that was my journey, was finding my inner strength. I worked in fitness for a long time, so it was like finding my own strength so I could help other people find their own inner strength, literally, physically, but also mentally, emotionally. And then that led to, you know, the career thing was just it was all over the place. I tried like, you know, I was like the queen of side hustles. I worked in finance. I worked for startups. I was
I heard
all
you
over
talking
the
about
place.
your resume. I was laughing.
Oh my gosh, my resume is but it actually, like I look back at that now, you know, and one of the funny parts about that is I sold life insurance and I worked in like the least sexy part of finance. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am so not a finance person. This is not, but then now I've kind of come full circle. And while I don't do that, I love, love, love helping my clients with their relationships with money, which includes, you know, personal finance and just taking radical responsibility for all parts of that and creating the life they want, much of which is sort of predicated on, do you have the resources to have the life you want? And so how can you go do that and attract to you the things that are important to you? So much of my message has always been connected to my own messes. You know, your mess becomes your message, and your wounds become your wisdom, and all that good stuff. So I'm really, in a lot of ways, grateful to the hurdles because they helped me get to where I am.
And I like what you talked about too. So you talk about your resume being all over the place. And I always tell people, I'm like, look, where you're at now, you're supposed to be there. there's something that you've got to learn that's going to help you later on down the line to get to where you want to be when you figure this out. So I like that you have that mindset, because most people go, oh, this is terrible. And they don't learn they don't see the opportunity in that
Yeah.
whole situation.
Or they think something was a waste of time. Someone
Yeah.
like, oh, I did this whole, I got a master's degree and I'm not even using it. What a waste of time. What a waste of money.
Right.
And it's like, what if we actually look at every past chapter of our lives and be like, actually, this was a huge lesson, a huge learning experience. Even like my take on exes, because, people, it's just very normalized in our culture to just talk really badly about our exes
Yeah.
and gossip and stuff and like want the worst for them and stuff. And I'm
Right.
like, no, like I look back at all of my exes. I'm married now. I've been with my partner for 12 years, but I look back at my exes before that and I'm like, so grateful to each of them, because each of
Right.
them showed me something about myself that was crucial in
Yeah.
helping me understand what I actually wanted in a relationship and what I want,
Right.
what's important to me as a person.
Yeah.
And I think we can do that with our jobs, with our degrees. Looking back at my resume,
Yeah.
the ironic part is I didn't actually need a resume in the end because I'm an entrepreneur. But it was funny to look at it and be like, this seemed so random, but looking back at it now, I can connect the dots and
Yeah.
appreciate the patterns, the threads.
Yeah, it's true, right? That's what Steve Jobs said. You can't connect the dots looking backwards, right? But you can look at what you created along the way, and I think that's huge. So so as you work through personal development and you've created uh this goal of helping people, I'm gonna say this, I don't know how many times, for unleash their inner badass. What is it that talk to me about your program that really just, because to me it sounds so spicy. I mean, it really sounds like just listening to your story, into fitness, you're into CrossFit, and you're into the journey, right? You're an athlete. And so to me,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of very competitive, and you're like, get into the mud and let's go, let's get it. So talk to me about this whole program of yours with that helps people really tap into who they are.
So I think of it as a transformation from the inside out. Just all the work I do, regardless of what whether it's a group program or a membership or an online course or one-on-one in any capacity. At the end of the day, no matter what we're working on, like I
Yeah.
was saying, a lot of what I work with people on right now is their relationship with money specifically. But
Yeah.
whether we're doing money stuff or we're just talking about general, like overall life kind of audit, full
Yeah.
life transformation, the work that I'm doing with people always starts with the internal piece. So I'm
Okay.
kind of like, they can come to me and say, my goal or my dream or my plan is XYZ, but I don't even know if those desires are genuine to them, because
Gotcha.
so much of what people think they want is just based on conditioning. It's based on keeping
Yeah.
up with the jobs, especially with financial stuff. It's like so much is
Right.
just the pressure. It's like, gotta like keep up appearances. And, I'm
Yeah.
trying to impress my parents' friends still, even
Right.
though like I don't even talk to any of them since 20 years or whatever. So it's like,
Right. The
so
kids
much
I
of
went to
it.
high school with, I'm gonna show them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Right. And so I find it really helpful to kind of like zoom way out and go way to the inside first and just get clear on like, who even the heck am I? So we're
Yeah.
doing work again with the identity piece. It's like,
Yeah.
who am I really? What are my core values? What makes me tick? What do I even care about?
Yeah.
Because if I don't know who I am and what I value, then how am I supposed to set goals that are in alignment with that? Otherwise, I'm just setting goals that are kind of random, or they're just based on societal expectations.
Right.
I'm in the Bay Area in California, and I work with a lot of very high achievers, very, very successful people who trust
Yeah.
me.
Right.
They have all the things, they've done all the things, they're very quote unquote successful on paper. Their lives look amazing. I'm sure their resumes are, perfect, but they're out of alignment and they're
Yeah.
unhappy and they're whatever. So much of the work is about like untangling the past conditioning and just figuring out, who am I actually at my core? What is my true essence? What
Yeah.
is my authenticity that gets me so lit up that I'm so excited about like I really like who I am.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's like the identity stuff. It's not just like peeling away the past conditioning. It's getting to the core of who you are, but then also, again, that deciding, who do you want to become? So a
Yeah.
lot of the work I do with clients, regardless of what area of their life we're working on, it's like, who are you becoming? Like, what
Yeah.
is this future version of you that you are so like, I think about my future self all the time. I'm like, talk about a badass. Like, I love her. She's amazing. I get
Yeah.
so excited to become her, and
Yeah.
I have a long way to go, but I snap into little bits and pieces of her
Yeah.
momentarily all day, every day, because I'm
Gotcha.
working on training myself to become that version. So
Yeah.
it's always about transformation from the inside out. It's always about getting really clear on their authenticity. And then from the inside out, then it's just like, then we want your life, your finances, your relationships, whatever, to be an expression of who you are. So then it's like, it's about making those, sometimes it's big, scary leaps. And I've had plenty of people like leave marriages, leave jobs, start
Ooh,
businesses, write a book,
yeah.
launch a podcast, move to a different country, like big stuff. But most of the time it's tiny baby steps and like
Yeah.
little incremental. It's like, a pilot sitting in a cockpit, just like turning the little
Yeah.
dials like 1 degree at a time. But
Right.
then just like the magic of compound interest, it adds up over time.
There we
And
go.
like 3 or 4 months down the line, somebody's like, oh my gosh, I'm basically a different person. I feel completely different. People are responding to me differently. I'm carrying myself differently. And
Yeah.
as their identity transforms, the way they show up in the world, their results, their life starts to like transform before their eyes too. And then a lot of
Yeah.
we want so badly to change, but when we're just trying to push and shove and force change,
Yeah.
we encounter a lot of resistance. But when we do it holistically and from the inside out, it's almost like the things we were hoping to change sort of change on their own without us even having to do anything.
Yeah.
That's pretty magical.
Yeah. Because it's going to change either way. Something's going to happen. It's going to change. Our,
Yeah.
our goal is, or our mindset should be, what's the opportunity and the problem, and what can I control out of this whole thing, right? I think that's a
Yeah.
huge one. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't
Being at
realize they can
choice.
control. Yeah, that choice.
Yeah.
I always say choose greatness over mediocrity every day. I love it.
Yeah, and greatness, your best every day is going to look very different.
Yeah,
Yesterday I was feeling amazing. I
right.
crushed my workout. I was
Yeah,
like doing all the stuff for work. I felt like the most badass entrepreneur in the world.
yeah,
Today, a big wave of hormones happening for me today. I
yeah.
felt like crap in my workout, but I went
Got
to
you.
the gym. I showed up. I was like at a 5, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
okay. And then today, like honestly, with my work day, I've had a really emotional day. I'm not feeling motivated. And
got
so,
you.
but I'm still showing up. I'm still doing the thing just like at the
Yeah,
gym, but
yeah,
I'm lowering my expectations and I'm being gentle with myself because I'm like, my best today is going to look like a 2, whereas yesterday my best was like a 9. And
right.
that's great. And it's all okay. But it's like, I'm still choosing greatness over mediocrity
Yeah,
today. It's just
yeah.
my greatness today looks a little different than it did yesterday. And it
There we
probably
go.
different than it'll look tomorrow. So I think
Right.
there's a lot of room for grace and patience
Yeah.
and allowing ourselves to be human.
So when we have, you think when we have those moments, a lot of people are too hard on themselves, and when they're too hard on themselves, that's why they end up being stuck or not moving
Oh,
forward.
absolutely. One of
Yeah,
my mentors says we're really good at making ourselves wrong. So let's
yeah,
practice making ourselves right.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like
I like it.
so many of my clients are, these high achievers, and like high achievers have the highest rates of imposter syndrome because no matter how well they're doing, they're still convinced that it's not good enough. They're still
Yeah.
convinced that like total fraud, like I'm
Wow.
everyone's going to find me out, like I'm never good. And so it's like we're really, really, and it makes sense, our brains are wired that way. Society's telling us all the time that we're going to buy this
Yeah,
product, do this thing. And so we are so good at making ourselves bad and wrong. So I think it's really important that we practice in whatever shape or form, makes sense for each of us and resonates, to decide and remind ourselves that we
yeah,
are good enough. And we do. And it's like a lot of it is just turning down the dial on all the self-criticism. Even
yeah.
just coming, like, we don't have to be all rah-rah all the time, I don't think, either,
Right.
because that would probably just be annoying. But like
Oh my
we can
gosh,
turn down
it
the
would
dial,
drive
just like
me nuts.
noticing, yeah, right. Like just noticing when we are so quick to go to self-judgment and
Yeah,
self-criticism. And like, especially when it goes down to emotions like shame.
yeah,
It's one thing to be a little judgy, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But it's another thing to spend 2 weeks shaming yourself
right.
for something that is just you're human. You made a mistake or you didn't hit a goal, whatever it was. So it's like the
Yeah.
more we can, and that's just a huge waste of time and energy and
Oh my
bandwidth. I'm like, can
gosh.
you
Yeah.
imagine if we take all the time that we waste beating ourselves up and
Yeah.
use it for something more helpful?
I totally agree. That'd be so much better. We'd be so much further along, right? I think
Yeah.
we had a conversation last week when we were talking about how much negativity weighs. And so I've heard it several different times, several different
Mm,
ways, but I go with 17. So if I hear one negative term or one negative statement or comment towards me, you've got to replace it with 17 positive things, right? To get that
mm,
weight off your shoulder. That's my thinking of it. But I say stuff to myself all day long about me being the greatest of all time and how awesome I am. So I don't care what you
yeah.
say to me. I don't pay attention anymore.
Mm,
But those things would dial me back,
yeah.
pleasing other people. You ever had that problem?
Oh, I was like the world renowned leading expert on people pleasing for
Yeah.
sure. It's probably my biggest, if not my biggest unhelpful tendency. And I see exactly where it came from. And it's something it still pops up, but I'm much better at navigating it these days. And of course, now it's ended up being one of the things that I also love helping other people with, because I see it so clearly when it's happening, and I see how disempowering it is. And I understand how the feeling of just collapsing down and like giving your power away and just desperately wanting other people to, for me, it wasn't about like getting people to like me. It was more about, I just didn't want to bother anyone. I didn't want to like inconvenience anyone. And somebody's like walking toward me on the sidewalk, and I like leap out of the way so that they can, have the whole white sidewalk to themselves.
I'll jump into the street with traffic, no problem. Yeah.
What is this like? No, I'm allowed to take up space. We're all allowed to take up space.
Yeah, because we allow people to be our puppet masters when we're like that, right? Oh, I'm focusing on a goal, and next thing you know, oh, you're trying too hard, you're doing too much, you're too obsessed. You should dial it back. It's not guaranteed. What about everybody else? You're forgetting about the friends and everything. Oh man, you dial it back, and now you're miserable, and they're fine because they want you to be miserable because they're miserable. So yeah. I can get far away. I can get carried away on that. Sorry.
What's the phrase? If you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything. Right. It's like, I think of us as when we're trying so hard to, whether it's to fit in or to people please, or just to not bother anyone, or we're so porous to other people's, especially like the classic thing with an entrepreneur, like a lot of us come from, families or childhoods where maybe we were surrounded by people with 9-to-5 jobs. And so everyone in your world, of course, is going to be like, don't do that. That's crazy.
Because I'm somebody who believes that the largest gap an individual will face is the gap that stands between where they are now and what they could become. So the question becomes, are you willing to climb? The greatest trick the mind will ever pull is convincing you that your greatness does not exist. Mama used to say, she said, Eric, what you do in the dark will come out in the light. And she means that you reap what you sow. You get what you put in. And so you got to put the work in. Why? Because you're going to step your game up and tap into that untapped potential of yours and become the greatest person that you can possibly become.
I woke up, I was about to lose everything. And so my wife was about to leave me, and that meant my 3 children were going to be gone, which really hurt me because I would fall short on a promise to my kids where I told them that I was their father. Nobody would ever be in their house taking care of them. Nobody would be responsible for them. They never had to worry about calling anybody daddy but me. Momentum shift. When you get stuck, you got to find a way to get going. And that is all about elevating your performance. You have to realize that high-level results are not products of low-level effort. So you got to step your game up. So you get stuck, you got to get yourself moving. And when you're down in the dumps, you're the only one that's going to be there. So you got to be your own hype man.
What happens is when you don't realize that you have all that you ever need to create the life that you want to live, you're missing out. You're standing at the base of that mountain thinking and hoping somebody's going to save you when all you got to do is take action. Theodore Roosevelt said, he said that the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena with their face marred in dust with sweat and blood. You've got to get in the arena, claim your moment, take the opportunity to take your shot. Then when you're in that arena, think about this. I got to step my game up.
Eric's message was extremely powerful.
The power of overcoming is not just connected to you. You're rising because the people behind you are counting on you. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Too risky. What about retirement? What about health insurance? And so, so of course, and I'm like, my thing is like, I'm never going to take advice from somebody who doesn't have what I want. I'm happy to receive feedback, and sometimes I find it helpful, and sometimes I will listen to it. Other times I just let it like float past me, and I'm like, I appreciate that you have an opinion, and I don't have to, I can be gracious, but I'm not gonna, I no longer need to make decisions based on other people's opinions that literally have nothing to do with me. And so people are so threatened by when you're in a paradigm that's different than them, or you're doing something that maybe makes them feel threatened because it's making them feel like, well, maybe I'm not doing enough, but it's way easier for them to just judge you or tell you you're doing the wrong thing than to look at their own stuff, so it's
they're going home and sitting on the couch every day watching TV, sleeping till noon and not doing anything, and you're out there busting your butt accomplishing great things. I think I always had that challenge as an adult. My dad worked in the company for 43 years. So when he heard I was leaving one company, going to another and going to another one, he's like, whoa, what are you doing? So people who haven't operated in that mindset have no idea of what it takes or understand what you're doing but
Yeah.
you have a vision of your own that's important. So talk to me a little bit. You talked about the woman that you're going to become. So how did this person come about? I mean, what really, because eventually you had to sit down and really think this out. So what is
Yeah.
the routine that brings you to that?
You know, I credit a lot of my mentors, and I consider my mentors to be both, you know, coaches I've hired and worked with
Yeah.
specifically, but also just my
Oh, so the
teachers from
coach has
afar.
coach. Make note of that. The coach
Oh my
has,
gosh, yeah.
you have to,
Coaches have
right?
coaches, teachers have
Yes.
teachers, you know.
Yeah,
I
we
think
have
of
to.
Right. Steph Curry has a coach, like the best in the world have people who help them become greater, you know, and it's like just
Yeah.
having somebody who can see. So, but I credit so many of, whether it's people I've worked with directly or just my teachers, my mentors from afar. I started at a very early age, and Tony Robbins is a great example. That's even
Yeah.
part of the reason the whole Unleash Your Inner Badass comes from his Unleash the Power
Okay.
Within whole, you
Ah,
know, movement and stuff. But like
yeah.
that languaging always spoke to me. And I think everything around self-empowerment and so it's like I was seeking out that type of content very
Yeah.
early, and I started flooding my brain. I knew that I tended toward worthiness questions and
Right.
challenges. So I was like,
Right.
the world is going to do a really great job telling me I'm not enough. So I need to reinforce myself on a regular basis. So I started to do, I call it positivity brainwashing, where I'm just like
Yeah.
flooding my brain with, you know, all the audiobooks, all the podcasts. And then
Okay.
I try to always find mentors and teachers who really resonate with me. And
Okay.
so when I find those teachers, I also, especially I look for people who have, like I was saying before, I take advice from people who have something I want. So in my case, because I'm a female entrepreneur, I tend to gravitate towards female entrepreneurs, oftentimes coaches who have online businesses where they
Right.
live, you know, freedom is the basis of everything, but
Yeah.
where they're passion and purpose led, like they're in integrity, they're in alignment, they're having a massive impact, but
Yeah.
they also have freedom, and they look like they're living, you know, hopefully their online representation is always, you know, you take it
Right.
or leave it. They were
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
greatest.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm pretty good at reading people's, you know, if they're in integrity or not. And so I look at that as role models and as expanders. And
Yeah.
when I see people who have that, I'm using that as evidence, and I'm training my brain to believe that it's possible, but also believe that it's possible for me.
Right.
And then I look at the gap and I think, okay, here's this person. I don't necessarily want her business or her life or her clothes or her style or anything, but it's like,
Right.
what's my version of that? She's evoking some sort of a emotion or image for me.
Right.
And so through finding expanders like that, also through just, you know, working through different personal development programs, leadership trainings, things like that, where you do different
Yeah.
exercises that help you sort of step into that,
Yeah.
doing things that scare me, you know, finding a powerful version of myself that I didn't know existed, like even just being in Italy for the year and being like, I like this sassy Italian version of
Yeah.
myself, or
Yeah. Yeah.
speaking on a stage and suddenly finding, you know, a voice inside of me that I was like, wow, I haven't spoken with this kind of like depth or resonance before. And
Right.
so it's like daring to get out of our comfort zones. And then as you start to kind of collect these little breadcrumbs and clues about who is this version,
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
think we can sit down and do like the mindset work and the journaling and the clarity work to really
Yeah.
evoke like an image, you know, and I'll do vision boards where I find images that evoke those, or Pinterest things where I'm
Yeah.
like, to me, it's always like these powerful women who they have some femininity and they have some softness, but they're also
Yeah.
these like warrior women
Got
types.
you.
So
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
resonates for me, you know, and each of us
Yeah.
is going to be different in terms of what we're drawn to.
Yeah. I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm thinking all I'm thinking about is the superhero pose. And I see you. That's you, right? Your superhero pose. I do my superhero pose. I always, but one of the poems I quote is Invictus, and at the
Mm-hmm.
end, I'm standing on top of the tallest building in New York, hat on backwards, of course, and the
Of
cape and
course.
everything else. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, who else wants some of this?
Mm,
Because it's just something to me that lets me know, I've got to take charge of things. And when I do that, I can do great things when I choose to take charge. So many times you look at what you've accomplished, and there's those moments when you haven't accomplished anything, and you got to look at you like, well, this because I've chosen not to do anything.
mm.
So
Yeah.
it's an interesting one to me. So can you talk to me a little bit about how you made a routine in your day that you use to really help you keep going or stay in that choice?
Yeah, I think that some of the biggest things are for me, again, with the identity as an athlete, that I've noticed that, and as a personal development junkie, you know, I try all the things, and I'm always experimenting and like biohacking and, you know,
Yeah.
doing all the things to figure out what works for me personally. And I found over the years that movement has by far been the most consistent, not just, you know, gives me the physiological stimulation and the needs and feeling good physically, but for more than anything, it's a mental health thing. It's a mental wellness. It's a mental strength thing. Because when I, again, like go to the gym or go on a walk or do whatever, yoga or running or whatever it is, and I'm committed to that, it's like again, it's just such a perfect metaphor for life and for all of our goals. So really having consistency in fitness is a thing. And I take these like 45-minute daily walks. That has become almost like a sacred medicine to me at this point. Sometimes I'm just with my own thoughts and I'm looking for the neighborhood cats, and but most of the time I'm listening to podcasts.
You're taking pictures of cats, yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm a crazy cat lady, so I definitely take lots of cat photos. My poor husband, I'm like, I found 7 cats today. I'm sending all the photos, but now he sends them when he goes on his walk and he finds the cats too. But it's like that's when I'm doing my positivity brainwashing. I'm just inundating my mind with whether it's entrepreneurship or marketing or manifestation or just all the things that I love that I practice and teach. So that to me, it's like a moving meditation. I get the fresh air, I get the vitamin D and the sun and the movement, but I'm also flooding my brain with inspiration. And I'm someone who I find that I do best when I have sort of a steady flow of inspiration. I like to respond to things much more so than just like create from nothing. And so I get little sparks of inspiration. And then probably the other things is I'm a huge introvert and a huge empath. So I definitely need blank space. I'm not someone who would do well with back-to-back meetings.
Right.
I'm someone who can like talk to people all day. I can be very on client calls and podcasts and social events. And then I need to go and just like be quiet and not talk to anyone. So for me, it's really important. It's like part of just basic self-care for me to build in quiet.
Got you.
And blank time on my calendar.
Get that. It's a must to get that in on your day. That quiet time. I was talking to my mom today, and so I've never been that one who sits in quiet. She used to have to give me 5 minutes to be quiet, so she knew I'd fall asleep if that would happen. So I'm always the one in the office that pulls everybody out of their what they would call the extraordinary production time frame. Like, hey, what about this? And I'm pulling everybody out. But that's just because my mind is all over the place. That's part of the influencer and big dream type mindset that I'm in.
And that's the beautiful thing about, I think, these journeys is it's really easy to want to be like, what's the formula for success? And what's the perfect morning routine? And I got to join the 5 a.m. club if I want to be successful. And it's like, yes, all of these strategies do work. If you work them and if you stick with them, but different strategies work so differently for different people. And it's like, I think it's really important to honor our own makeup and like, how am I wired? And also what, each of us is coming with a totally different pile of baggage, whatever trauma and childhood stuff. And it's like, for one person's, one thing may be not a big deal at all. For somebody else, it's a huge trigger and they may go into a stress response and completely shut down for that thing. So it's like, we can't expect. And I see this with entrepreneurs all the time. You're like, here's the latest, hottest marketing strategy. And you go try to apply it to yourself and you burn out in like 5 seconds, where somebody else could do the same thing all damn day, and it's like, we have to honor who we are. And then within that still, decide to go for greatness and not mediocrity and do whatever our version of our best is. But like, I think there's so much room for authenticity and looking at like what lights me up specifically versus just trying to copy everyone else.
I like where you're at with that whole process of helping them tap into who they really are. Because I'm big on this, mindset is huge for me. And I understand that when you're not doing, so if you set, I tell people all the time, when I was working for Booz Allen, and every year on my evaluation, I'm going back to college to get my degree. I worked there 7 years, never went back to college to get the degree. It just didn't mean that much to me. It wasn't important, right? And so if it's not important to you, why isn't it? Why are you setting this goal? And it's because of what society wants for us. So I think I like what you talk about, how you help them tap into who they are. I've got now the DISC certification, and I'm learning about the. You said you were a woo person, so you win people over, right? So the Gallup Self Finder, I think is what it is. Talks about the woo factor. And so I love that because you tap into who you are as far as how you operate and what you value. And I think I love how you do that. So that's cool. So you do a lot of self-assessing.
And I think it makes everything easier too. Like one of my favorite quotes, if I can not butcher it, is tension is who we think we should be, and relaxation is who we are.
Okay.
Even I just hear that and I'm like, oh, it's like such a relief, because we're so conditioned to go around being, speaking as, dressing, marrying, everything about our lives. Like we're choosing in favor of who we think we're supposed to be. And that creates so much like cognitive dissonance. Like we have what I would consider like our soul guiding us on the inside, but then we have all this external noise that's so much louder. And it's like so much of the process is just turning down the dial on the external noise and turning up the dial on our soul, our inner guidance, our, higher self, whatever you want to call it, your intuition, which most of us, I'm like, we all have it, but it's like, it's like a muscle. If you never use it, it's going to shrivel away and atrophy into this like sad little like twig of a, and I'm like, we have to use our intuition muscle, just like we have to use, go to the mental gym, go to the physical gym to stay strong. And so part of what I love doing, is not just helping people find that identity and who they are, but turning up the dial on just that like unapologetic authenticity. So you use your intuition, you use your core values, you use your purpose, your passions, all of that as your guide. And then it literally makes decision making, just day to day, like mundane decision making, so much easier, because you're choosing in favor of integrity. Like, how do I be who I know that I am and who I'm trying to be in integrity with, versus like, well, what would they think? And like, what would my grandparents think if I sent this to my email list? And what would my neighbor think if I wore that outfit? And it's just like, let them think whatever they're going to think, show up as who you are. And then you can create a business, a life, your relationships, your lifestyle, all of that in a way that is just, and it might be, might rub some people the wrong way. So of course it's scary, but the risk is so worth the reward of just like the actual like relaxation, the nervous system regulation that can come from just letting go of all this trying to be something that we're not, and just settling into who we are.
Yeah. And once you realize that it's easier to say no, isn't it?
And any successful person has to be really good at saying no, right? It's like the more known you are, the more successful you are, the more offers you're going to get, the more people want a piece of you. And it's like, we have to be so boundaried and get really ruthlessly good at saying no to everything that's not in alignment with what we're really trying to do, what moves the needle.
So talk to me a little bit. Before we close this out, I want to touch on, because you're married. So, and both of you are coaches. So talk to me about how nice that is that you guys, now, I don't know if you get along all the time or you don't, you talk how you talk about it or anything else, but talk to me about how nice it is to be aligned with focusing on what it is you love to do, as opposed to having somebody who may not even care about your dream or support it.
I feel very blessed to have my husband, Chris. We were sort of magnetically attracted to, it caused a little bit of drama when we first got together. It was a complicated situation, but it was one of those things where it was like, oh my gosh, this is happening no matter what. So we're just going to have to work it out. And so it was a very like dramatic, heated beginning. And so right off the bat, it was this like intense love story, but we also realized very quickly that we had very aligned values. We were both super committed to freedom. Like neither one of us was ever going to survive in like a 9-to-5 context. Neither one of us was ever going to be the like, just American dream. You buy the house with a picket fence and get the dog and the 2.5 kids. And this is how you're supposed to, we both like rebelled against that so hard. And, we had to do things with freedom. We had to do things with authenticity. We're also both really big on play and adventure. And so it was like, my business honestly probably grew much slower than it could have, because I was just not willing to sacrifice adventure and travel and experiences. And we got married and then sold everything, bought a one-way ticket and just traveled the world for a year.
Wow,
and then we'd come back and people would be like, oh, so nice that you guys were able to get that out of your system. Now you can settle down. And we're like, well, what? No,
we're
like,
going on another one.
We're like, no, we chose that. We created that. We just made that choice. Of course, there's other sacrifices. So we've always prioritized similar things. And even though he and I are very different people, we've always really committed to communication. And that is like the foundation of everything. A lot of it is trust, and a lot of it is based on we will just talk everything out. And so sometimes that means, long 3-hour conversations on the couch where we're just trying to understand. We're trying to each feel heard, and we're trying to each understand where the other one's coming from. And that's been like the basis of everything. And it, it's kind of ended up being a cool thing where most of our friends in our community, we're like a little bit older than most of them too. So they see us as like the elders, but I think they also see us as like, this kind of power couple that they are inspired by, because we're always communicating so consciously.
That's cool. So who coaches who?
I
mean, do you when you're in those heated moments, do you go like, stop coaching?
Yeah, I think there's sort of a, I mean, unspoken and spoken agreement that like, we also know each other really well and really good we're good at making specific powerful requests and setting
Yeah.
boundaries too. So he
Yeah.
knows that as I think a lot of women feel, like I do not appreciate unsolicited advice. Unless I love asking for tips and like I need help brainstorming, but
Got
if
you.
I'm say venting about a challenge, I don't want him to just swoop in and fix the problem because he's a man and he can do, and I'm like, actually want you to shut up,
Yeah.
hold space for me, listen, ask questions, look me in the eyes, hold eye contact, and probably hold me while I cry.
Yeah.
Once I move through my emotions and feel safe, then maybe in an hour I might be open to brainstorming. But
Yeah.
even then, I don't want you to tell me what to do, whereas he sometimes it's like, what would you do? Like, tell me what to do. Like he actually
Right.
wants advice. And I'm like, like, because sometimes I don't want to give advice because I'm so coach trained where I'm like, I want to
Got
help you
you.
find your own answers and stuff. So it's fun because he's also, trained, he's a health coach, but
Yeah.
so we both have all the skills, but we also try to just be two humans, we try to just be two normal, imperfect humans who, we'll argue and we'll hash things out.
Yeah.
But it always comes back to communication and trust and just, choosing to support each other in
Yeah.
growth and learning all the time.
Yeah, that's cool. And he's learned that at whatever age he's at. He's younger than I am. I know. I commend him. It's a great way to do it because I've been married 33 years, been with my wife 35 years. And I've
Wow.
learned that too. She doesn't want me to fix everything. Just, okay, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And once she gets finished, she figures it out. She's good. Now, on the other hand, it doesn't always work that way. You should do this. Like, you know what? You're probably right. That sounds pretty good. I'll try that one.
And it's like it's so silly that we as humans we expect each other to be these incredible mind readers, and then we get really
Yeah.
resentful when the other person doesn't magically know exactly what you need and want at every moment. Like sometimes they
Yeah.
guess right, but
Right.
we can do ourselves so many favors if we train the people in our world, especially our partners or family members. Like, hey, this is what I need. This is like Chris and I constantly ask each other, what do you need from me today, or how can
Yeah.
I support you right now?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
honestly, most of the time his answers are like the exact opposite of what I would have guessed. So I'm so
Right.
glad I asked, like I think he needs, space because he's angry when really he just wants to be like held because he feels afraid. And I was like, wait, what?
What?
And so it's just so helpful to ask, to
Yeah.
constantly be like, how can I support you? What do you need? And then also tell the other person, here's what I need right now.
Yeah. Sometimes we come into the other one because we know the answer, but we don't want to buy into it yet, and they confirm what we're already thinking. So what you got coming up next?
Ooh, lots of things. We are, speaking of family,
Yeah.
I am pregnant, so we are in the
Awesome.
process of going through that journey. So
Yeah.
preparing, that's going to be a whole new world. It'll be our first. So
Yeah.
preparing for that journey that's definitely coming up next.
Yeah.
Where
We should have talked about that earlier. How you That's
it's
cool. That's awesome though.
it's very early too. I'm just so terrible at keeping secrets, and I
Got
tend
you.
to share pretty much everything in my personal
Yeah.
life on my own podcast and stuff too. So I'm just
Got
like
you.
the world can know. So that's coming up, and so if we like way in the future, I know there's a book percolating in me somewhere.
There
It's
we
not
go.
quite ready to peek its head out yet, but it's like
Yeah.
it's starting to nag a little bit.
Okay.
Mostly, I'm so enjoying actively designing and intentionally creating my own life and my lifestyle to be as much in alignment and to be this like expression of who I am, and then helping all of my clients in different programs do that for themselves in different ways to unleash
Yeah.
their inner badass, to manifest their dreamlands, and especially all the stuff around creating the financial reality that they
Yeah.
desire, because that of course helps so much with all the other stuff too.
Yeah.
So I love living my life in as much as alignment as possible, and every day is just a cool opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I love it. That choice every time. You have a coaching program you want to share with them?
I have a free thing I would love to share
Oh,
actually,
cool,
which is it's a new thing. So I'm actually really excited to put it out in the world. So this is one of the first places where I'll get to share it.
cool.
It is a 3-episode, they're short, they're like 20 minutes long, 3-episode pop-up podcasts. It's called Making You Magnetic.
Oh,
So
nice.
we talked all about the identity stuff. And this is because I love helping people, especially entrepreneurs, because that's the journey I know so well, and especially women entrepreneurs, because again,
Yeah.
that's the journey I know so well. But I love helping them basically transform their relationships with money, like I was talking about before.
Right.
So this pop-up podcast is specifically around the identity piece. and it's around embodying your wealthy future self. So it's like how to step into what I would call queen energy and how to embody your future self so that you can start to magnetize all your desires, but specifically the abundance you desire. A lot of my clients are like these, high achieving, successful people.
Right.
And their relationship with money is a train wreck. So even that, so it's like, it kind of doesn't matter how much you make. It's like, what is your relationship with money? And I love coming in and being like the almost like the healer, the midwife, the doula that helps to heal that relationship and make it one where you feel calm and happy and excited and motivated. Unlike, I think most people, when it comes to money, they feel stress or panic or overwhelm or like a long list of emotions that are not very fun. So this is my my little gift to the world to do that. And people can find it by going to makingyouMagnetic.com.
Love that. makingyouMagnetic.com. I love that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me share it.
Wow. Well, Sandra, thank you for joining us today. You awesome. You really are a momentum shifter, and I'm glad you joined us today. I love, like I said, the energy. I love how you talk, just to see how you talk about what you do. You can really see the love and the passion that you have for what you do. And so I applaud you. Thank you very much for joining me. And that's it for our show today, ladies and gentlemen. The Momentum Shift, the show designed to get you inspired, get you moving so you can get results. Why? Because we believe that you can live in the impossible. Whatever it is you think that you can't do, trust me, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. You got that choice to make every day. Like Sandra said, get up and do it. Take care.
Are you ready to experience unparalleled comfort and warmth like never before? Introducing Sensory Product Design's flagship line of cozy blankets, the ultimate solution for warming your extremities and wrapping yourself in a whole body hug of coziness. Sensory Product Design's adult-sized Cozy Throzies and child-sized Cozy Cozies blankets are crafted from the highest quality microfiber fleece, ensuring unmatched warmth and comfort. But what sets Cozy Z's apart is its unique ability to settle your nervous system, providing a soothing sensation similar to an adult swaddle. Whether you're unwinding after a long day at work or trying to calm down your hyperactive child, Cozy Z's blankets work wonders in helping you find peace and tranquility. As proud sponsors of the Momentum Shift podcast and radio show, we invite you to visit CozyZ.com. That's CozyZZ.com now and use the discount code Momentum25 to enjoy a fantastic 25% off your purchase today. Experience the magic of Cozy Z's blankets from Sensory Product Design and transform your moments of stress into moments of bliss. Don't wait. Embrace the warmth and comfort of Cozy Z's today.
Thank you for joining The Momentum Shift, a show bringing you interviews and stories of incredible people to help you get inspired, get moving, and get results to ultimately create the life-changing momentum shift that will improve your life. Join host Eric Collier, the mayor of motivation and mental quicksand expert, every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern for The Momentum Shift, the show and change you've been looking for.